G'day listeners, this is Rick from Tips and Ratings. I just thought we'd take a bit of an opportunity to have a look at weight. It's obviously an aspect, a variable in racing that's been around for a long time, and as we continue to evolve and progress and have numerous different methods to measure the impact and ability of how all the horses perform, I thought we'd have a look at this. Obviously, weight comes in different shapes and sizes. It's allotted through different types of races, whether it be weight for age or a handicap or whatnot. So just with the handicaps, it's important to remember that generally the horses that do carry more weight do so for a reason, and that's that at some point in time they've performed better than the horses with less weight. Now this theory obviously isn't steadfast. There are different times when you do get horses that can beat the handicapper, but generally that's how it works. The more they win, the higher their rating generally gets, and obviously if they don't win or struggle to win, then their handicap rating isn't generally going to increase. Therefore, they'll generally carry less weight. But you will get horses that will race in better company, and obviously they'll produce strong ratings and then still be eligible to drop down in class and may get in with lesser weight. And obviously they're horses that are generally on the up, and younger horses and other horses that can beat the system. So what we've got here, what we're looking at is this first column is the weight carried. Then the next one's the average beaten margin for all those horses. It's a very basic way to look at it. We've trimmed out some of the really big margins to get a clearer idea. And then this one says barrier. It's a count of the barrier positions. So just to give you an example of how many sample or how many runs we've had that has helped calculate this particular variance. And another thing we can do is just whack that there, and that cleans it up a bit more. So if we just look at that, basically all the horses that have been beaten 10 lengths or less, we've got a couple here that there's really a small sample size, 1 and 2 runners respectively. But when we start to obviously take a look at the next group, we can obviously see that the horses that are on average are beaten the least are horses that carry 60 kilos. If we go down to the next big sample, which is over 2,500, that's 59.5 kilos, and they're beaten on average 3.8 lengths. We go down to the next big sample size, and we've got 59 kilos, and that's a whopping sample size. There's over 9,000 there, and they're beaten 4. We can 64 and 65 have small samples. 57.5 and 58. Well, there's not much between them through 22,000 samples. We've got a very small sample size again for 63.5, and then we get down to 57. Which has got 15,000 samples, 58.5. We're looking at 10,000, 4.2 lengths, and it continues to go down and down and down. And if we look at the biggest sample size and what we got, and that's 21,000. And then if we have a look at what weight that is, it's 54 kilos. So what I've done is this is from basically the 1st of March last year to now. So in the last 12 months, the average beaten margin for all horses beaten less than 10 lengths for this simple exercise basically the worst performers are horses with 54 kilos. We can go down 52.5's got 2,500 sample size. 52's got 3,000. So as you can see, when we work through the list, it really is quite evident that better horses get more weight, and better horses run better than lesser horses. And what my belief of what weight is designed to do is, weight is designed to make good horses slower. It doesn't mean that if a poor horse has less weight, it's ever going to be as good as the better horse with more weight. And that's where your times come in, because if you've got a horse that can run a certain time and a horse that can't run that time, then it doesn't matter how much weight the poorer horse has, it's still never going to be able to run as fast as that other horse. So it's up to us as punters to find out where that tipping point is for that horse with more weight, that basically means it can't perform at its optimum. And that can generally have a little bit of a buffer, because despite the fact the horse may not be able to perform at its optimum with 60 or 61.5 kilos, in most cases they can still run 2 or 3 lengths inferior to their best, and it's still good enough to beat the horses that have lesser weight. So we'll just switch to a different form of diagram, and I'll just get rid of that one. And as you can see there, I'll just put the count all in. So we'll just get rid of the small samples. So we just simply click on the number and hit exclude, and it gets rid of it. So as you can see, we're dealing now with the higher sample sizes to give us a better idea of the curve. 64, we'll get rid of that. They didn't actually rate too badly, the 64 and 65 and 63.5. 64.5, they're a lot, despite 62, despite being small, they're a lot better than 52 and the like. Get rid of that one. We'll keep that. We'll get rid of 53. We'll get rid of 52.2. Okay, so our sample sizes now range from around 2,000, let's call it, up to 21,000. Get rid of that. Okay, now that gives us a better idea. So what we're looking at now is basically the average beaten margin for all horses that carried 60 kilos, and it's 3.72. 59.5 is 3.86. 59 is 4. And as you can see, it travels all the way through. And I think that when I assess these different things, I like the margin between 3.72 and 4.2. It's not much, it's half a length, which is a fair bit depending on what you're looking at. But if we sort of bracket this and say, well, the horses that, say between 56.5 or 55.5 to 60 odd, they certainly appear to outperform horses between 52 and 55. And it's quite interesting that if I just look at this from a different point of view, that the numbers, just the less weight you have, on average, the further the horses get beaten. And I know there's different ways to measure weights and whatnot with profit on turnover and whatnot, but just by looking at it like this, it really gives us an indication that, there's a lot of value to be found at the top of the market. Horses that basically run with these lesser weights, generally these days with the way the handicaps are, they're worse off. They're racing out of their handicap, which means the horse that has 60 kilos probably deserves 60 kilos, and the horse that has 54 kilos, well, maybe he should actually have 49. So he's actually in five kilos worse. And the more you sort of study and follow the handicapper and what they do and whatnot, they are bound by, certain rules and terms to apply to the whole structure of the benchmark racing system and the rating bands. And basically what that means is, some horses might win a maiden and should be rated 68 or a 72, but obviously the handicapper is never going to do that, because the owners would be up in arms and all the horses need an opportunity to be able to work their way through the grades. So I think that closing up on this short video, I think that obviously this is a very broad way of looking at it, but it does give you a little bit of insight into the fact that the reason in general that horses carry more weight is because they're better horses. And as we know, generally speaking, better horses beat lesser horses more often than not. And it's up to us as punters with the weights to really delve into the form and just ascertain, how is the horse in against its handicap rating, and obviously how that all fits in. And then obviously times can come into it, which is a big help also in ascertaining whether or not the horse is any good, whether or not they run a certain speed figure or other certain indicators that you look for. But I just thought that was an interesting topic, and certainly one that I think that it will be well received. And if you've got any questions or anything like that, just let us know. If you've got any ideas or any other reports you'd like us to run and do a little session on, just send us an email or comment on this one, and we'll be happy to have a look at it for you. So thanks for listening, and all the best.